The Virginian wasn't just another Western, it was a television landmark. Set on the sprawling Shiloh Ranch, the show brought the wild frontier to life with drama grit and unforgettable characters. From 1962 to 1971, it defined an era. But behind the guns and glory were real people actors who faced fame, heartbreak, and in many cases, tragic endings. Today we look back not just at the show they made, but the lives they lived. Let's begin. Doug McClure as Trampus. Doug McClure was born on May 11, 1935 in Glendale, California, a golden-haired, blue-eyed actor who would become one of the most beloved cowboy figures in television history. When The Virginian premiered in 1962, McClure stepped into the role of Trampus at the age of 27 and over 9 seasons turned what had once been a villain in the original novel into a fan-favorite hero. With his easy smile, boyish charm, and playful swagger, Trampus brought humor and heart to Shiloh Ranch. While The Virginian was the stoic enforcer of justice, Trampus was the one who lightened the mood quick with a joke, yet always ready to stand his ground when it mattered. Doug McClure's chemistry with the cast made him the soul of the series. But behind that charm was a man who struggled with the pressures of fame. Doug battled alcoholism throughout much of his life, a quiet fight he rarely spoke of publicly. His personal life was often turbulent, 4 marriages, each ending in divorce, and though he had children, he once admitted that his work had often kept him distant. After The Virginian, McClure continued to work steadily, appearing in sci-fi cult films and guest roles on TV. But he was never able to escape the shadow of Trampus. He joked about it, saying, "I can't walk into a feed store without someone asking where my horse is." Yet deep down, he remained proud, knowing that generations had grown up watching him ride across the screen. In the early 1990s, Doug was diagnosed with lung cancer. He faced it with quiet strength, continuing to appear in public and support Western-themed fan events even as his health declined. Doug McClure passed away on February 5, 1995, at the age of 59, far too young. His death hit fans hard, especially those who had grown up watching him as the bright spirit of the West. He may have ridden off into the sunset, but his legend still rides with us. James Drury as the Virginian. James Drury was born on April 18, 1934 in New York City, a man of quiet strength, piercing eyes, and a commanding presence that seemed made for the wide-open West. When he took on the title role in The Virginian in 1962 at the age of 28, he stepped into television history, becoming the face of one of the longest-running Westerns ever made. For 9 seasons and over 200 episodes, Drury played the unnamed foreman of Shiloh Ranch, a man known only as the Virginian. He was stoic, principled, and tough as rawhide. He didn't say much, but when he spoke, people listened. He wasn't just a cowboy. He was the code of the West come to life. James Drury brought more than acting to the role, he brought authenticity. He was a horseman in real life, deeply respectful of cowboy culture, and committed to making sure the show honored the spirit of the frontier. Underneath that serious exterior was a man who cared deeply about his craft, his castmates, and his fans. Off-screen, Drury was a true gentleman, educated, articulate, and grounded. He studied at NYU, loved classical literature, and was known for personally answering fan letters even decades after the show ended. After The Virginian, he acted in other westerns and guest roles, but eventually stepped away from Hollywood to focus on business and ranch life. Later in life, he became a regular at Western film festivals and fan conventions, always dressed in boots and hat, proudly carrying the legacy of the character he made iconic. He never distanced himself from The Virginian. In fact, he embraced it with love and pride. James Drury passed away on April 6, 2020, just shy of his 86th birthday. His death marked the end of an era not just for The Virginian, but for the golden age of television westerns. He once said, "I tried to play him as a man of honor, the kind of man we need more of." And he did. Lee J. Cobb as Judge Henry Garth. Lee J. Cobb was born on December 8, 1911 in New York City, a powerhouse of stage and screen whose booming voice and commanding presence made him one of the most respected character actors of his generation. When he joined the Virginian in 1962 as Judge Henry Garth at the age of 51, he brought serious dramatic weight to the series and helped anchor it in gravitas from day one. As the owner of Shiloh Ranch, Judge Garth was more than a cattleman. He was a man of law, integrity, and vision, often serving as a moral compass in a world where justice was rarely simple. Cobb portrayed him with quiet authority and deep complexity, balancing strength with compassion, power with principle. Known for iconic roles in 12 Angry Men and On the Waterfront, Cobb was a classically trained actor nominated for an Academy Award and widely regarded as one of Hollywood's greats. Bringing him to a television western wasn't just casting, it was a statement the Virginian would be more than shootouts and scenery. It would have soul. Off-screen, J Cobb was intense and intellectual. A veteran of Broadway, a former member of the group theater, and an artist who had once been caught in the crosshairs of the McCarthy-era blacklist, Cobb's life was marked by both triumph and controversy. His testimony before the House Un-American Activities Committee haunted him for years, but he continued to work and deliver masterful performances. Though he left the Virginian after just 4 seasons, his portrayal of Judge Garth left a permanent imprint. Later replaced by new ranch owners, none quite carried the same gravitas. Cobb gave the show its foundation a sense of law dignity and old-world authority. J Cobb passed away on February 11, 1976, at the age of 64 from a heart attack. He left behind a legacy that stretched far beyond the West into the very heart of American film and theater history. He wasn't just the judge of Shiloh Ranch. He was one of the finest to ever wear the badge of serious drama on screen. Sarah Lane as Elizabeth Granger. Sarah Lane was born on March 12, 1949, in New York City. A striking young actress with soft features, quiet strength, and a presence that lit up the screen. She joined the Virginian in 1966 at just 17 years old, stepping into the role of Elizabeth Granger, the bright and spirited daughter of the ranch's new owner, John Granger. Though she was one of the youngest members of the cast, Sarah Lane brought surprising depth to Elizabeth, a character caught between the ruggedness of frontier life and the heart of a girl growing into womanhood. She wasn't just there for background or charm. Elizabeth had opinions, courage, and a kind heart that won over both the other characters and the audience. Sarah appeared in over 60 episodes during seasons 5 through 7, and her on-screen relationships, especially with James Drury's Virginian and Gulager's Riker, gave the show a more personal, familial touch during its later years. Off-screen, Sarah Lane lived a quiet, grounded life. She came from a showbiz family. Her mother was also an actress, but Sarah never let fame define her. After the Virginian, she stepped away from Hollywood and devoted herself to family faith and horses. She was an avid equestrian and remained proud of her Western roots, occasionally attending fan conventions and sharing memories with loyal viewers. Though she left the spotlight early, Sarah Lane was never forgotten. Her portrayal of Elizabeth represented a gentler side of the West, one rooted not in gunfights but in hope, warmth, and the strength of growing up in a wild world. Sarah Lane passed away on March 3, 2023, just days before her 74th birthday. Her passing was quiet but deeply felt by those who remembered her from Shiloh Ranch. Gulager as Emtt Riker. Gulager was born on November 16, 1928, in Holdenville, Oklahoma. A man with sharp features, a steely gaze, and a quiet intensity that made him magnetic on screen. When he joined the Virginian in 1964 at the age of 36, he took on the role of Emtt Riker, a former lawman turned ranch hand, and quickly became one of the show's most compelling figures. Riker wasn't your typical Western sidekick. He was complex, haunted, a man with a gunman's past and a lawman's code. Gulager played him with understated power, never overacting, never needing to. His stillness spoke volumes, and when he did speak, his words carried weight. Over 4 seasons, Gulager gave Riker depth that audiences connected with. He could be both fiercely loyal and dangerously distant. At Shiloh Ranch, he brought a sharp edge, a contrast to the stoic Virginian or the warm Trampus. He didn't seek the spotlight, but he always commanded it. Off-screen, Gulager had a long and fascinating career. Before the Virginian, he played Billy the Kid in The Tall Man, and after leaving the ranch, he went on to appear in films like The Last Picture Show, Return of the Living Dead, and A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. He was equally at home in westerns, thrillers, and horror, a true chameleon of character acting. Though often underappreciated by mainstream Hollywood, Gulager became a cult favorite known for his integrity, mystery, and sheer presence. In his later years, he worked with indie filmmakers and even appeared in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 2019, proving his timelessness to a new generation. Gulager passed away on August 5, 2022 at the age of 93, surrounded by family. He left behind not just a legacy of unforgettable roles, but a quiet legend of his own, one built not on fame, but on truth, grit, and unforgettable characters. John McIntyre as Clay Granger. John McIntyre was born on June 27, 1907 in Spokane, Washington. A veteran actor with a commanding voice, weathered face, and gravitas that made him a natural fit for westerns. When he joined the Virginian in 1967 at the age of 60, he stepped into the formidable role of Clay Granger, the new owner of Shiloh Ranch after Judge Garth's departure. As Clay Granger, McIntyre brought quiet authority, wisdom, and a deep sense of decency to the screen. He wasn't a flashy cowboy or a brooding hero. He was a man of the land of morals and of measured strength. His presence gave the Virginian a renewed stability during its later seasons, especially paired with Sarah Lane as his daughter Elizabeth and Janette Nolan McIntyre's real-life wife as Holly Granger. Off-screen, John McIntyre was a true professional. With a career stretching back to radio and early Hollywood, he was known for roles in Wagon Train, Psycho Winchester 73, and countless other classics. He and Janette Nolan were one of Hollywood's most respected acting couples, often performing together with quiet chemistry and unmatched discipline. McIntyre wasn't one for the spotlight. He valued privacy, simplicity, and the work itself. Whether playing a rancher, judge, or lawman, he brought depth to every line and dignity to every role. John McIntyre passed away on January 30th, 1991 at the age of 83 in Pasadena, California. He was survived by his wife, Janette, who passed away just 8 years later. Together, they left behind a legacy of integrity both on and off screen. As Clay Granger, McIntyre didn't try to replace what came before. He simply brought what only he could: wisdom, calm, and timeless strength. Ross Elliot as Sheriff Mark Abbott. Ross Elliot was born on June 18, 1917 in the Bronx, New York. A reliable and familiar face in film and television for over 4 decades. When he joined the Virginian in 1963 as Sheriff Mark Abbott, he was 46 years old and already a seasoned character actor known for his strong presence and quiet authority. As Sheriff Abbott, Elliot brought calm professionalism to the sometimes chaotic world of Medicine Bow. He wasn't a flashy lawman, he didn't need to be. He was firm, fair, and always in control. Whether diffusing tension at Shiloh Ranch or standing his ground in a dusty saloon, Abbott represented order in a frontier world teetering on the edge of lawlessness. Ross Elliot appeared in over 60 episodes of The Virginian, making him one of the show's most recognizable supporting characters. His presence added credibility and structure to the drama, and he became a steady, reassuring figure amid cast changes and evolving storylines. Outside the show, Elliot had a vast resume, appearing in I Love Lucy Perry Mason, The Twilight Zone, and even War of the Worlds 1953. He was the kind of actor directors trusted, professional, prepared, and able to deliver every time. Ross Elliot passed away on August 12, 1999 at the age of 82. Though never a headline star, he was a cornerstone of classic television, and in The Virginian, he left behind the lasting image of a man who wore the badge with quiet pride. Charles Bickford as John Granger. Charles Bickford was born on January 1, 1891 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a towering figure of classic Hollywood, known for his gravelly voice, piercing stare, and the kind of screen presence that demanded respect. When he joined the Virginian in 1966 at the age of 75, He stepped into the role of John Granger, the new patriarch of Shiloh Ranch, and brought with him a lifetime of experience both on and off screen. As John Granger Bickford portrayed a hard but fair ranch owner, a man molded by years on the land, unafraid to make tough decisions, yet quietly devoted to his family. His dynamic with his granddaughter Elizabeth, played by Sarah Lane, and his firm leadership over the ranch hands gave the later seasons of the Virginian renewed energy and emotional grounding. Though he only appeared in one full season due to his untimely passing, Bickford left a lasting mark. His character was not just a rancher, but a symbol of old-school Western integrity, rough around the edges but deeply principled, off-screen. Charles Bickford was a legend. Nominated for 3 Academy Awards, he starred in classics like The Song of Bernadette Johnny Belinda and A Star is Born. He had worked with everyone from Greta Garbo to James Stewart and brought that same gravitas to television late in his career. Known for his toughness, he survived a near-fatal lion mauling early in life and came back stronger both physically and professionally. Sadly, Bickford passed away on November 9, 1967, at the age of 76 from pneumonia. His death came just as he was beginning to win over a new generation of fans on the Virginian. Janette Nolan as Holly Granger. Janette Nolan was born on December 30, 1911, in Los Angeles, California. A classically trained actress with a voice like velvet and eyes that could flash between kindness and steel in a heartbeat. When she joined the Virginian in 1967 as Holly Granger, she was 55 years old and already a highly respected veteran of stage, radio, film, and television. Holly Granger. The wife of Clay Granger, played by her real-life husband John McIntyre, was more than just a ranch matriarch. She was the emotional bedrock of Shiloh Wise Warm and not afraid to speak her mind. Janette Nolan gave Holly a quiet authority that made her one of the show's most beloved female characters during its later seasons. Her real-life chemistry with McIntyre brought depth to their on-screen relationship. They weren't just playing husband and wife. They were husband and wife, and the authenticity of their connection gave the show a deep sense of family rarely seen in Westerns. Beyond the Virginian, Janette Nolan had a remarkable career. She debuted in Orson Welles' Macbeth 1948 and voiced Lady Macbeth herself. Over the decades, she appeared in over 300 television episodes from Perry Mason to The Twilight Zone and voiced characters in Disney classics like The Rescuers and The Fox and the Hound. She was as versatile as she was dedicated. Janette was known in Hollywood as sharp, generous, and deeply professional. She often collaborated with her husband, and together they formed one of the most respected acting duos in television history. She passed away on June 5, 1998, at the age of 86 in Los Angeles, nearly a decade after the death of John McIntyre. Though the world moved on, those who loved the Virginian never forgot the woman who brought grace and soul to the wild frontier. L.Q. Jones as Beldon. L.Q. Jones was born Justice Ellis McQueen, Jr. on August 19, 1927, in Beaumont, Texas. A cowboy by nature, a character actor by trade, and a scene stealer in every role he played. When he joined the Virginian in the early 1960s, as Beldon the ranch hand with a sharp tongue and loyal heart, he brought with him the grit and wit that only a true Western veteran could deliver. At around 35 years old when he first appeared, Jones quickly became a fan favorite. Beldon wasn't a central figure, but whenever he showed up, he made you smile. He was the guy in the bunkhouse with a dry joke, a loyal fist, and just enough mischief to keep things lively at Shiloh Ranch. LQ brought charm to the edges of the screen, a man whose authenticity couldn't be faked. But his work extended far beyond the Virginian. A favorite of director Sam Peckinpah, L.Q. Jones, appeared in iconic westerns like The Wild Bunch Ride the High Country and Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. He was part of the gritty, violent reshaping of the western genre, but always kept one boot in the classic character-driven tradition of the Old West. Off-screen L.Q. was more than just an actor, he was also a writer, producer, and director. In 1975, he directed the cult classic A Boy and His Dog, a post-apocalyptic sci-fi film that showed his creative range and bold vision. He was a storyteller, a risk-taker, and a man who never stopped working well into his 80s. L.Q. Jones passed away on July 9, 2022, at the age of 94 in Los Angeles. His death marked the loss of one of the last true Western originals, a man who had lived, breathed, and shaped the genre from the saddle up. Stuart Granger as Colonel Alan McKenzie. Stuart Granger was born James LeBlanc Stuart on May 6, 1913 in London, England, a swashbuckling screen legend of British cinema who brought elegance, authority, and worldliness to everything he touched. When he joined the Virginian in 1970 as Colonel Alan McKenzie at the age of 57, he gave the long-running Western series a bold new energy in its final season, which was rebranded as The Men from Shiloh. McKenzie was unlike any previous Shiloh ranch owner. He was a retired British Army colonel with sharp intellect, refined manners, and a fierce sense of justice. Granger's portrayal added international flair to the American frontier, a mix of steel and sophistication. With his polished accent, tailored waistcoats, and commanding presence, Colonel McKenzie stood apart from the rough-hewn cowboys around him, but never above them. Granger's casting was the daring shift for the show, but it worked. He brought credibility and charisma, appealing to both longtime fans and new viewers. Though he only starred in that final 9th season, his performance helped the series close with class and ambition. Before, the Virginian Stuart Granger had already conquered Hollywood. He was a major film star of the 1950s, known for roles in King Solomon's Mines, Scaramouche, and The Prisoner of Zenda. He played adventurers, swordsmen, and romantic leads with unmatched flair, always refined, always daring. Off-screen, Granger was intelligent, outspoken, and fiercely independent. He wrote a candid autobiography, invested in real estate, and lived a colorful life that spanned continents and decades of stardom. He passed away on August 16, 1993 in Santa Monica, California, at the age of 80, after a battle with prostate and bone cancer. Though his time on the Virginian was brief, his impact was lasting. He helped usher the series into its final evolution with grace and gravitas. Bing Russell as Donovan. Bing Russell, guest star on the Virginian. Bing Russell was born on May 5, 1926 in Brattleboro, Vermont, a character actor whose warm smile and rugged features made him a natural fit for the American West. While he never held a leading role on the Virginian, Bing appeared in multiple guest roles throughout the 1960s, often portraying sheriffs, outlaws, or frontier townsfolk with sincerity and grit. He was approximately 37 to 43 years old during his appearances on the show, right in the prime of his television career. With that perfect blend of youthful energy and mature presence, Bing brought credibility to every Western scene he stepped into. Known for his dependable screen presence, Russell gave authenticity to each character he played. Whether he was enforcing justice or causing trouble, his roles always felt grounded, shaped by dust, hardship, and quiet resilience. Beyond the Virginian, Bing was a fixture in classic Western TV. He had recurring roles in Bonanza and appeared in Gunsmoke, The Rifleman, and Rawhide. Off-screen, he was also the father of actor Kurt Russell and a Maverick baseball team owner known for giving outsiders a shot with the Portland Mavericks. Bing Russell passed away on April 8, 2003, at the age of 76. Though often in the background, his contributions to television westerns were vital, adding grit, depth, and humanity to a genre built on larger-than-life legends. John Dehner as Morgan Starr. John Dehner was born on November 23, 1915, in Staten Island, New York. A tall, commanding figure with a baritone voice and an air of no-nonsense authority. When he stepped into the role of Morgan Starr on the Virginian in 1965 at the age of 49, he brought a new kind of leadership to Shiloh Ranch. One rooted in discipline, precision, and an emotional distance that sharply contrasted with the warmth of his predecessors. Morgan Starr was not a cowboy's cowboy. He was a businessman, a manager, a man sent to run the ranch his way with rules, order, and little tolerance for sentiment. John Dehner played him with icy confidence and subtle depth, showing that underneath the stoicism was a man haunted by past regrets and hardened by responsibility. His time on the Virginian was brief, only several episodes in Season 4, but unforgettable. Many fans were taken aback by Starr's strict, often unyielding demeanor, yet Daner's performance gave the character complexity. He wasn't cruel, he was tired, and trying to hold something big together in a world that didn't want to be tamed. Outside of the Virginian, John Daner was one of the most recognizable character actors of his era. He appeared in hundreds of TV shows and films, including Gunsmoke: The Twilight Zone, Rawhide, The Doris Day Show, and The Right Stuff. He was also a gifted radio performer, famously voicing characters in Western radio dramas like Frontier Gentleman and Have Gun, Will Travel. Originally trained as an animator for Walt Disney Studios, Daner had a wide-ranging career that spanned comedy drama and westerns. No matter the genre, he brought class, intelligence, and presence to every role. John Daner passed away on February 4, 1992, at the age of 76 in Santa Barbara, California. Though his stint on the Virginian was short, it marked a turning point in the show's evolution, a colder, more modern era ushered in by a man who didn't need popularity to make an impact. They weren't just actors in a Western. They were the heartbeat of a frontier, men and women who gave us characters full of courage, pain, loyalty, and quiet strength. Week after week, they rode through our living rooms, teaching us about honor, justice, and the price of solitude under a vast sky. Some rode off into the sunset too soon. Others faded quietly into time. But each one left behind a trail we still follow in memories, in reruns, and in the hearts of those who still remember what it meant to grow up with the Virginian.